Hi, this is Nahid completing Module 3. I am interviewing an ASD teacher who works at Hazel McAllen with me. Her name is Lisa, and she will be answering the interview questions for the Module 3 task, the role of school staff. Hi, Lisa, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions and then just answer it based off of your own experiences in the ASD classroom that you're working in currently. The first question is, how do you ensure your teaching and support strategies remain responsive to students' various backgrounds for whom you are accountable for?
To ensure I have a culturally responsive teaching, I first make sure to familiarize myself with the different students in my class and learning about their different backgrounds by building relationships and kind of taking their input and getting to know them. I also use inclusive materials reflecting various cultures and having a space that represents all the students in my classroom, and when necessary, modifying my teaching practices to make sure they're compatible with the various learning styles in my class. Furthermore, to establish a positive environment that promotes respect and inclusion, I reflect on my own practice and kind of ask for feedback from my EAs as well to see how we could best support them. Supporting individual student needs as well. So, for example, any type of language or trauma support and working with families and communities to ensuring it's a safe space where students feel supported. By enabling empathy and collaboration and ongoing learning, it allows for enabling an environment where all students that come in feel valued and empowered.
Amazing, thank you. Would you provide an illustration of how you integrate anti-oppressive practices into your everyday practice with students who are receiving special education services in your classroom?
Of course, integrating anti-oppressive practices with students who are receiving special education services is acknowledging and honing onto each student's different cultural identity, kind of what their strengths are and their needs. So this includes things like DI in an attempt to provide accessibility, allowing students to utilize things like assistive technology, and providing multiple means for students to be able to kind of demonstrate their understanding and meet the students where they are. By encouraging inclusivity in collaborative learning is by making sure I'm encouraging students to make their own choices and help create a space where the students with disabilities are valued and supported and they feel seen in the space that they're in. By encouraging equity, autonomy, and respect for one another, it establishes a space where all the students in my class will excel.
That's awesome. It's nice to see that you're doing that and getting to know your students to help support them in that way. For the next question, what are some of the most pressing equity concerns for students with exceptionalities in our education system for today?
Among the equity problems of exceptional students, I feel like there is deprived of fair access to special equipment and services and restricted involvement in general education classes, which kind of go around the stigmas and biases, minimizing their potential. So some students could experience a lack of individualized support that reflects their special needs or having inadequate teacher preparation for instruction with diverse exceptionalities and unequal access to the learning activities and materials they need. Furthermore, differences in funding could have inconsistent implementation of policies and a lack of family involvement, which can also create unequal educational opportunities for students with exceptionalities.
Yeah, I feel like in our school we do a really good job with trying to support the students and making sure that it is equitable, but I definitely see with these like funding cuts and budget cuts, it really doesn't help us with how we can really support the students in the best way possible. For your next question, did you ever have to teach a special education student whose culture was different from yours, and how did you cope with any cultural barriers that might have been to your teaching?
So I once had a student, we'll call her Maria, who was a Spanish-speaking student who had a learning disability. Her family had recently immigrated to Canada and she was continuing to adjust both to the language and the different kind of school structure we have here. One possible cultural barrier that her family did not have, was they didn't have strong English fluency and they weren't really familiar with the whole IEP structure and special education services, especially because sometimes it can kind of be stigmatized. It took a lot of getting to know the family and really helping them understand how it would benefit their child. To better deal with this, what I kind of did is I initially established a good relationship with both the student Maria by finding out more about her her cultural, her interests, kind of her family life. And then I also attempted to incorporate some of her cultural into our classroom activities, including the use of Spanish language materials and celebration of cultural holidays that she kind of celebrates, and also doing translanguaging. So when we had activities, having it accessible both in English and in her own mother tongue language. I also work closely with our ELL team to kind of see how we could better support her in terms of communicating with her family as well regarding Maria's progress and the goals outlined in the IEP. I used a lot of pictures and learning by experience and technology to assist Maria's instruction. So she had an iPad that she could walk around with and use. So when there is that language barrier, she didn't feel like she couldn't communicate with her peers or other staff. She could easily translate on that, especially now with the technology ban. Students can't have their phones. So the iPad was a good kind of leeway for that. I also slowed down the pace with instruction and gave Maria extra individual support, so doing more one-on-one, more conferencing, trying to pair her up with any other students that were kind of at the same level to kind of help her feel comfortable in the classroom environment. And I found this really helped Maria feel more included, and her family also enjoyed seeing the efforts kind of being put in place and seeing her adjusting well to a new country, a new class, a new kind of environment.
Amazing, excellent. I can definitely see that you took enough steps and good action to support Maria in all aspects of her learning, which is great. For the last question, it is, how do you collaborate with classroom teachers to provide consistency and inclusion for IEP students in content and environment?
In providing consistency and inclusion for IEP students, collaboration with the classroom teacher, I believe, is essential. Ongoing communication is needed to help ensure that IEP goals are being incorporated into the curriculum and instructional practices, and kind of checking in frequently to make sure this is actually being done is very important. Through co-planning, we're able to kind of change the instruction where we need to, modify assessments and modify classroom materials so that we make sure we're meeting the individual needs and students are kind of addressed. Co-planning activities, sharing of effective accommodations and supports, and creating an open and receptive class climate help align to our instructional practices. I also enjoy working alongside the EAs as they help support me and the students with this process as well. They play a crucial role in the classroom in ensuring we all create that safe, welcoming, equitable, and inclusive environment. In addition to the EAs, also the ISSP support staff play a crucial role in this in terms of SRM meetings or any type of transition meetings we have for students.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa, for taking the time to meet with me today. I do appreciate it, and I enjoy working with you here at HMC, so thanks for helping me with this.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.